Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your email concierge for your questions about the price or the purchase of this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform, even the website. If you have any questions, email me directly at tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Launched in 2019, this may be the coolest dive-style watch in the world. From Bethune, this is the DB28GS Grand Bleu. The timepiece is 44 millimeters, really 44.1, in grade 5 titanium. It's 12.9 millimeters thick, and it has a 26 millimeter spacing between the lugs, which are spring-loaded variable geometry. So they range from 51.5 millimeters across the wrist to 54.5 millimeters when fully extended. Now, the timepiece wears well on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference. The lugs are narrower across the wrist than the floating lugs we're used to seeing on DB28s. Bethune has its large, medium, and small lugs. These are the medium lugs, and they're suitable for a wrist as small as 14 centimeters in circumference. You can see the watch is surprisingly flat, and it will fit underneath the cuff. And being made mostly of rubber, sapphire, and titanium, it is super light and hypoallergenic on the wrist. Now, Bethune can switch out the lugs when the watch goes in for service, so keep in mind, this spec is not set in stone for the watch. It can always be changed in the future. The watch features a wonderful factory strap, vulcanized rubber in blue. It's a matte finish except for the center, which features a lateral striation and a little sunken channel. It's a brand new factory strap. You can see it has a hollow on the bottom to vent the wrist. There is a deployant clasp here, and as you can see, this deployant clasp is a double folding deployant clasp, and it keeps the watch anchored on your wrist during vigorous activity. You'll also note that the buckle has a little bit of a evacuated profile that's reminiscent of the design of the floating lugs. Speaking of the floating lugs, you can see that they're actually blackened inserts to add a tonal contrast, and the mid case too has a nickel anthracite coating to create more contrast with the case back and the bezel, which are conventional satin titanium. It is grade 5 tie, which is both lighter than steel and more scratch resistant than steel. We have these little conical protrusions on the ends of the lugs. Those are the ogival or torpedo caps that are a nod to the original Bethune watch from 2002. That was the DB1 chronograph, and that is an element that has been enduring on Bethune watches through the years. Speaking of which, fewer than 3,000 watches have been made by this company since 2002, so exclusivity is assured, and even today they're only making 200 to 220 a year. Now, there's a relatively sharp knurling on the dive style bezel. You can see there's a little index there, and you can line up with the minute hand of the watch and use this as a conventional diving bezel. The watch is 105 meters water resistant with a screw down crown, and it is a unidirectional bezel. You have at center a rare example of a DB28 with center seconds. Let's remember that the DB28 launched like a supernova back in 2010, and the following year it won the GPHG Aegidor, which is best picture effectively at the Oscars of watchmaking, the best watch of the year. So this watch comes from decorated stock. Now we have a multi-layer dial. As you can see inboard, there's a track for reading the seconds. It has a sort of sector type printing, and then it's a little bit conical in an inverse profile. It dips towards the center with a satin metallic finish. You can see that the bridge, as well as the hands at center, feature black polish. The bridge is entirely black polished. We have 1, 2, 3 shock protection springs, which are there both for durability and for rapidly recentering the balance staff for the sake of chronometry. 2 self-adjusting barrels, patented. 5-day power reserve. They cannot be overwound. We have a little power reserve index off to the side that traces your 5 days of power reserve. We have this patented triple parachute shock protection system, a patented process for fire bluing titanium. The hands there are made of titanium. We have a patent for this blued titanium and white gold balance. It's one of over 8 individual balances that Bethune has patented. We have a 2-element hairspring that's flat and thus thin, but breathes concentrically like an overcoil. These 2 pieces are shaped by hand and clamped together. And then we have a low-friction silicone escape wheel. All of this caliber 2080, beating away at 28,800 vibrations per hour and pivoting on 35 joules. Now, the watch features a remarkable luminescence. And as you can see, it starts with luminescent material from Black Badger. But if you want more, you got it. LED dynamo-powered lighting. You could see that the barrels are turning, and off at 3 o'clock, there's even a little minute repeater-style centrifugal governor that allows you to loom the watch longer so the barrels don't just discharge in a fraction of a second. You can see the bezel is entirely backlit too, making it far easier to read the bezel in the dark than by day, which is the intention, as you will be in the depths of the ocean when you use the watch. Now, through all of that, I only used up about 1 day's worth of power reserve. There is a screw-down crown up at 12 o'clock. You hike the lugs out of the way, you screw it out, and then you use it for winding and you use it for setting of the watch. The timepiece does feature a lot of freehand finishing, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Just note on the case back, you can see the underlying mechanism that drives the power reserve indicator. You can see that there is mirrored anglage on the bridge as well as the levers, that there is satination on the bridge as well as the levers. We have black polished screws, and then we have this micro light engraving, and you can see that too on the flanks of the case and on the case back. And so the watch includes a lot of hand finishing. You could easily overlook it because the watch is so spectacular and it has a high-tech look, but it's traditionally executed. You can see the black polishing, all of it turning black as I angle it through the light. And then you can see that micro light engraving, which is a reductive sort of linear guilloche that de Bethune prefers to guilloche as well as Côte de Genève. You can also see that the edges of the bridges are mirror beveled, so it has traditional rounded hand-finished anglage. It is quite special, and there's a lot of it, including satination on the wheels as well as the barrels. It is a very, very, very special watch. This over an RM any day of the week. RM is branding. De Bethune is science. Not just science, art and science. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.